Welcome, everyone. It's Career Happy Hour. It's 3 o'clock Pacific time. Every Friday, you and I will be together here to actually support each other in this community. So the Career Happy Hour is something I started, probably been a couple of years ago, maybe more, just to answer your questions about career. If you don't know me, I'm Andrew Beach. I'm an executive coach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals communicate their value to find great opportunities faster, whether they're working or not. That's through a pragmatic process of branding, planning, and effective networking. Effective networking, by the way, is the number one way to find work today. There's something on my mind that I'm going to share with you here in just a moment, a topic of interest. I've certainly been paying more attention, if you will, to things that are kind of coming across my personal situation. And I just like to share some of those concepts, some of those ideas, just to not only help share with you, but also to remind myself that, I'm not immune to some of the things that you're also facing. And so if you would please just take a moment and put any questions that you have about career into the chat box or the comment section of the platform you're on, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Doesn't really matter. I'm simulcasting to all of those platforms. And if you would please just put a question in there. Is it about resume? Is it about work from home? Is it about the pandemic and how to interact with people virtually speaking that are working from home? And how do I make that happen? How do I create relationships where none probably exist today? Or the ones that you have today are surface level. Maybe you want something a little bit more strategic for your future. Whatever it is, if it's interviewing, market planning, how to use LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn since 2004. Go ahead and put those questions in the comments section. I'm happy to answer. Now, I recognize that many of you may not want to let people see that you're on this stream, or you may be actually watching this stream after the fact. That works too. You can always private message me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way, or you can send an email to me at andrewbeach.com. And you'll be able to get there just as easily. So me at andrewbeach.com, and you'll have that capability. So part of the process here is, if you are part of this community and you do want people to connect with you and have conversations, then please, by all means, put your LinkedIn profile, regardless of where you're joining from, put that in the comments section so that we can see that. I would like to see that's in there so that people can reach out to you. It's hard enough these days to network. It takes effort to do the outreach. It takes effort to follow up. It takes effort to actually execute the meeting. It takes effort to follow up after the meeting and to do follow-on meetings. It's a lot of work, I have to admit. Networking and doing it consistently over a long period of time takes a lot of effort. What I'm attempting to do here at Career Happy Hour is make it easy. So if you put your LinkedIn profile in whatever platform you're joining by, what you're signaling to everybody in the community is that you're open to being connected. And so that works as well. Now, the other side of this is I do offer free hands-on live coaching right now. If you want to come on live, there is a link in the description for this session where you can do that. So if that's the case, let me see here. Let me put that link, invite guests. There it is. I'm going to put this in the comment section of the video here. Let me make sure that I turn off. I don't. I certainly want to mute the site. I don't want it showing up. Okay, good. So I'll put that. I'll put that link into the comments section on LinkedIn, and then I will also put that here in the Restream chat. So that should go over. So this is the Join Me Live link that brings you into the back end of Restream, and you can flip on your webcam, and you and I can have a live coaching session right now. If that's what you want, then go ahead and do that. Click that link. Now, the other nice thing about coming into the green room on the back end here is that you can put your questions in here and people won't see it. Just say, hey, Andrew, I have an anonymous question, and just put your question in the private chat in what I call the green room back here. It's very easy to do that. So you may have seen from the description that the thing is kind of on my mind this week is having to do with what do you do? What do you do when you don't match the job description, right? When you can look at your skills, your strengths, your expertise, all of the things maybe appearing on your resume or your LinkedIn profile, all your capabilities. And you can recognize in that job description that you aren't a match. In your mind, there's something missing in you. And that's what I want to talk about today is, have you ever felt when you came to a job description that that job is not for you? Um, and if so, just let me know in the comment section if that's you. It's been me, probably more times than I can count. I've been in transition 4 times in my career. I think that's what's drawn me to this profession called career coaching or executive coaching. Is I've been through these situations and I understand what it's like to have doubt and to look at a job posting and say, hey, I don't think I could do that job. I really doubt that I have the capabilities or the experience or the education, or there's something that I feel is deficient in me that way. And I start judging. So I did that. It's funny how old habits die hard, but occasionally, I'll just look through LinkedIn and other sources to look at job descriptions and see if there's something that is interesting for me or those that I coach. And because I'm always open, I always have my eyes and ears open for opportunity. And I think you should too. And so it's not uncommon that I'll go out to the LinkedIn, or LinkedIn will recommend for me something, and I'll just go look at it, and I'll walk through or read through the job description and learn about the company and what are the things there. And invariably, I'll get to the section that says requirements or must-haves, right? So and it says must have X or must have Y or have this or 3 years of this or 5 years of that or a bachelor's degree, right? You start measuring yourself up against something you see posted online on the internet. And I know I shouldn't do that. And you probably shouldn't either. But I did it anyway, because that's just my nature. I feel I'm analytical by personality type. And I just analyze things. I audit myself against that job description. It's just natural for me to do that. And so that's not right or wrong. It's just the way I guess I'm wired. And so if you're wired like that, then you and I have that in common. And so my analytical nature said, if I don't have this, I don't have that, I maybe have these 2 or 3 things, but it just isn't enough for me to actually apply to this, because I don't feel I'm qualified. Now, I coach a lot of people, and here's what I found. And this is just informal research. Whenever I ask a group of hiring managers if I'm doing a group training, and by the way, my perspectives are my own. They are not of any organization that I represent or am affiliated with. So, and I'm not representing anybody but me here anyways. But when I ask this question, many of my sessions that I do for group training, I ask, how many hiring managers are on this session today? And, somebody will say, yeah, I've hired people before. And so 3 or 4 or 5 people will say something. I'm sure there's more. Those are the only people that actually raised their hand and said that was them. I said, okay, of those that have hired people before, how many of you hired someone that met 100% of the requirements on the job description? And more often than not, the answer I get is never. Never have I hired, or there's a rare unicorn every now and again, but more often than not, they're not hiring somebody that meets all the requirements. And that's something that, as a candidate or somebody looking at a job description, we really have to keep in our minds, is that even though I don't meet all the requirements, that doesn't mean I'm not qualified to do that job in the eyes of the hiring team, because these hiring managers admittedly did not hire someone that met all the requirements. There was likely 2 or 3 things, maybe more, but generally there's a handful of things they really need that person to have. And that's a hard no, or a soft yes if you have some of that. So if you have some or none of that, is probably a hard no. But knowing what that is when you're reading a job description is really hard. It's really hard to know, is this role for me or is it not for me? And if it is for me, how am I really going to know which things are most important to the hiring team? And either way, in some regards, you feel you lack the confidence, you have the doubt, you feel deficient. and it doesn't provide you a good foundation for approaching that interview or hiring process from a position of power or strength. Instead, let's look at that job posting and decide for ourselves as we're evaluating it, what do I really bring to this role that would make me good at it? What do I bring? A fresh perspective? Do I bring a set of skills outside the industry that's going to give them diversity of perspectives, right? So there's something in your expertise that you bring to that role, even if you're, let's say, 50% qualified, half qualified. Wait a minute, you're saying that I could get hired somewhere when I only meet 50% of the requirements? The answer is yes. It probably happens more often than you think. So for whatever reason, companies post positions, they may not have a firm grip on what they need. They just post the position. And not uncommon that you'll go through a hiring process and they had it wrong and they didn't hire anybody. And that's not very, certainly it doesn't make you feel good that you go through a hiring process and you just don't get hired, but it happens all the time, And so in that regard, I didn't feel confident applying for any of these jobs that I looked at because I felt there was something missing in me that I didn't measure up. I didn't measure up to the expectations of this job posting. And so as a coach, certainly I want you to be the candidate of choice. So as your coach or, your executive counselor, your consigliere, the person you rely on to give you sage advice, I want you to be the chosen candidate. That means if it's an online application that gets you there, great, then do the online application. I'm never going to say don't apply. I'm going to say don't just apply. Don't just apply. That means, yes, do the application, put in your resume, put your best foot forward. Don't spend a whole bunch of time wasted in cycles customizing your resume. Not that that doesn't add value. It does. It's just time wasted that you could be spending, perhaps investing time in meeting people at that organization that could give you a little bit of leverage in getting in front of the hiring team. And it doesn't have to be an all-inclusive, all-trusting, perfect relationship. All it means is you need to make an effort to connect with a person. And that may be all it takes is an effort to reach out to a person. So as I mentioned earlier, we're just talking through some ideas, some thoughts on what happens when you don't meet the requirements on a job posting. And if you're just joining us, if you have any questions, by all means, you can feel free to submit those in the comment section of the live stream, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. So I started thinking from first from a coach's perspective. How can I use this, what I just felt in reviewing these job postings, to help people that I coach? And the first thing is apply anyway. Even if you meet half of the requirements, apply anyway. Decide for yourself in a cover letter, resume, what it is you bring to that role that you think is valuable to that organization, and stick to that. That could be your brand. So what am I good at? I'm good at learning, teaching, and solving problems. And so I may position that a little differently based on the opportunity I'm pursuing. So maybe learning isn't what they're looking for. They're looking for someone that can understand technical issues. Okay, well, that's a learning process. So I can grasp and understand technical things, technical issues quickly. So that's just another way to say learning. So use the audience language, position yourself as best you can. Don't invest a lot of time in the online application administration. Invest your time in meeting people and trying to come to an understanding of what it is, the handful of things they're really looking for. And so as a coach, it reminded me and kind of affirmed the advice I've been giving for a long time, that the investment of time in the people is really, really what matters. And it is, I think, admittedly, on many different levels from many different sources, the number one way to find work today is through the networking, the relationship building, the meeting of people, the sharing of ideas. It's the dialogue between two human beings. Then I started looking at it from a new and different perspective. If I was the leader or the hiring manager for this role, would I really want? I had to imagine standing in their shoes for a moment. Is it possible that I'm missing out on exceptional candidates to hire because my job descriptions scare them off for whatever reason? And the answer I came up with is yes. It's certainly possible that there are people out there applying to jobs where they're just not qualified. less than 50% match, right? That happens all the time. And those, certainly are an anomaly, but they can be easily, filtered out as a hiring team. But there are certainly no measurements to know whether or not somebody didn't apply to a role. And that is certainly something that I would be concerned about as a leader. And with my recruitment staff, my recruitment teams, I would want to make sure there was some direct sourcing going on. And certainly not just from my perspective, but everybody on the team would be, making an effort to directly source their own candidates. Because these job descriptions, if they're written too detailed and too narrow, there's too many ways for me to decide not to apply. Instead, perhaps simplifying or taking extra time to know what the 2 or 3 critical things to be done, not the, hey, must have Microsoft Excel pivot table experience. No, must be able to analyze and evaluate. See, that's taking maybe the competency up a notch, and being able to demonstrate analysis and evaluation to make sound decisions is the skill they're looking for, not the fact that Excel pivot tables. Not that that's not a valuable skill, don't get me wrong, but it is a skill that can be learned. These hard skills like that can be learned. The soft skills of having good judgment and being able to evaluate and analyze and provide sound, sage judgment and recommendations to a team, that might be the skill you're really looking for. So I would take a little more time to make sure that my job descriptions aren't scaring people off, and really looking at a way to how we can perhaps get the right people into the organization based on the descriptions we're writing, and certainly taking some extra time to find those opportunities and direct sourcing ourselves. And really asking yourself, what is it that I need to adjust in these job postings, these job descriptions, in order to get the right people in the door? Because this is a competitive environment. Just because they're at least in the media, what I'm hearing is that there is way more job postings than available people. I don't believe that's true. I believe that there's plenty of candidates. I believe that there are people that are, this great resignation. There's people passively looking at a higher rate than you would imagine, and there's still competition in the marketplace. So it's not just that, hey, these organizations aren't finding people. They are. It's just that, people are appearing, at least from what I can see, to be running away from something. And that can cause organizations a lot of pause. And so if you're in that position as a candidate, and I'm approaching you now as a coach, is you may need some support in presenting yourself well during the interview, so that it seems like you're aspiring to do something rather than running away from something, if that makes sense. Because the optics and the impression that people get of you can be lasting. And we want the lasting impression of you to be a positive one, that you're actually seeking something rather than escaping something. Good. So any questions, of course, put those in the comments box. I'm happy to answer regarding career, anything related to, job seeking, networking, using LinkedIn, how to attract quality talent, that sort of thing. You can go ahead and put that in the description. And that's all I really had today. I guess we could go into and talk about some of the current events in the news. There was a couple of things I saw here that were interesting. So why don't we just let's take a peek at the news. Something with Cheesecake Factory, pandemic pivot. Let's see. Let's see. Apple enthusiasts embrace $19 cloth. Jarring job hunt. Okay, that sounds intriguing. Let's check this out, shall we? Jarring job hunt. You're not alone. Messages of support and solidarity poured in after LinkedIn member Kara Lockett shared her job search frustrations. In her viral post, she called the hunt for work emotionally jarring and mentally taxing, but vowed not to give up. Good for you. Good for you, Kara. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Not only did her perspective inspire others in the same position to keep going, she says she gained nearly 300 followers and some potential job leads. Isn't it interesting how when you share something that's compelling and interesting, and you scratch an itch in somebody else, figuratively speaking, right? You hit on a chord that other people can relate to, that you get traction and things take off. Said ultimately in a follow-up post, Lockett said she knows that the seeds that I sow today are making room for the harvest I'll reap tomorrow. No truer words were spoken. So maybe she's on here. There she is. Kara Lockett. Today I cried. Okay. I'm just a little tired. Yes, this is an exercise. This is an exercise in resilience. And, some industries are hit harder than others. It may just take longer. But it's not longer that I'm interested in. It's effective search methods. And if you're focused on one narrow industry or one set of industries and, just a handful of companies, it's likely going to take longer. Expand your geography, expand your list of companies, look at different industries so that you can have more opportunity rather than less opportunity. That'd be the first thing. Second thing, focus on the optimal methods of search for you, meaning which ones are generating the most interviews, not the ones generating the most applications. Applications are not directly correlated to hirings. So that not directly effectively correlated to hirings, except at single digit percentage effectiveness. So that's a good one. Yeah. So hang in there, Kara. We're cheering for you, of course. Let's see. Corporate America's epic blind spot. Interesting. What's the epic blind spot? Anybody have any insights? It's now common for companies to publish diversity reports, but most of them lack a key measurement. While some 96% of companies report the gender representation of employees and senior leaders, barely half of companies track gender and race ethnicity. For example, Black and Latina women. According to Lean In and McKinsey's Women in the Workplace report, some companies avoid this approach out of fear. Organizations that may seemingly be gaining ground on gender equity within their ranks may only be promoting and retaining white women. Wow, that's interesting. So I guess that goes to values. Each one of us, if we're interviewing in an organization, ought to be filtering that organization against our values. So what do you value? And depending on how you answer that question, you'll be able to discern for yourself with the organization you may be interviewing with how you want to respond with a yes or a no. Of course, make your yes and no decisions after you get an offer. That's what I advocate. So every opportunity is the perfect opportunity for you until you get an offer, and then you have choices to make. Good. Let's see. Facebook goes meta. What is this all about? Okay, that's interesting. Isn't that the symbol for infinity? Anyway, Facebook is renaming itself Meta. Is that kind of like Google renaming itself Alphabet? I guess so. Let's see. The move was teased in recent days as a social media company has been mired in controversies swirling around its business practices. Shocker. CEO Mark Zuckerberg revealed the company name change in the social media giant's annual developer forum, Facebook Connect. Quote, the metaverse is the next frontier. From now on, we're going to be metaverse first, not Facebook first. That's interesting, unquote. Unquote, that's interesting. That would be my emphasis added. The move signals a monumental shift in the brand's storied almost 17-year history, quote, to an emerging computing platform focused on virtual reality, unquote. Let's see, there's an additional editor note here. A key early priority for the newly named Meta is to encourage its massive membership base to sample, quote, immersive digital experiences, unquote, via devices powered by virtual reality software, Bloomberg reports. Yeah, I mean, they've been in that virtual reality space. And, I think they made some acquisitions there for sure. So that doesn't surprise me. It is kind of strange that they would have infinity as a symbol, but hey, whatever it takes. I'm not sure what that really means. It sounds like a nuance, maybe just a way for them to make the news. Who knows? Any impact or insights on that, certainly put it in the comments. Yes, happy Halloween, Charlotte. Thank you. Let's see. Return on investment. Let's see what this says. Return on investment of MBAs. Good news for those investing in a costly MBA degree. The Wall Street Journal analysis shows that graduates at 98% of universities that offer a Master of Business Administration program were making more money than they had borrowed 2 years out of business school. Meanwhile, only 6% of those who graduated from law school were making more money than what they had borrowed 2 years later, ranging in tuition fees from $100,000 to $250,000. MBAs are among the more expensive degrees, but the jobs are often at higher paying career fields. Well, that's good news. Our return on investment. What was this one? I don't know what this cloth thing is. Embrace a $19 cloth. Initially, it was almost an afterthought among a slew of potent new MacBook upgrades and video audio equipment upgrades. But as it emerged last month that Apple was marketing a modest 6.3 by 6.3 inch cloth to dab away dust and fingerprints and polish the pristine screens of its devices for the eyebrow-raising price of $19. Critics were aghast, yet Apple's ardent fan base of followers have responded with their wallets, making the cloth the company's most back-ordered new item. Can you imagine? That is crazy. As of Friday, those seeking to order this humble piece of cloth must wait till the end. You know what? There's going to be so many black market options for this. It's going to be astounding. You're going to see so many cloths with the little Apple logo on it. Anyway, it's an ultrafine fiber to clean glass without scratching the surface. Let's see. A pack of 6 for $9 on major online sites. Interesting. So the normal 6-pack goes for $9, and this is selling one. Let's see. I think it's one cloth for $19. Interesting. Well, it goes to show you the power of brand. Oh, and the fact that other post, that jarring job hunt post, was a job seeker that got more traction because they put together a post. So don't stop posting. Share some good stories, and often you will get some traction. Microsoft, now the most valuable company. Microsoft zoomed past Apple on Friday to once more claim the mantle of the most valuable U.S. listed company for the first time since July 2020. The software giant and LinkedIn's parent company, go figure that they made the news, unveiled a better than expected earnings report this week, while Apple on Thursday revealed the supply chain issues are hobbling its ability to meet demand across its product line. Yes, we can't get iPhones in our household right now because they're on back order. Won't be in for like another 90 days. Or some of them, I think, are coming in next month. Microsoft first reached the $1 trillion cap in April 2019. The company's market cap surpassed $2.44 trillion on Friday, and it stands with Apple as the sole U.S. companies retaining a market cap above $2 trillion. Well, that means they might be a good candidate for finding jobs. Perhaps there's market opportunities for us as job-seeking professionals to find jobs in this organization. So how do you think you could add value to Microsoft? And how many people do you think you could congratulate for this market cap in your network in the next week? Good. Looks like Charlotte's got some observations here. Interestingly enough, I received a Facebook notification yesterday. Have not been on that platform in years. Would like to ask a question based on an interview I had this week. By all means, go right ahead. Ask your question. We'll go ahead and share the answer as soon as you do. So let's see what happened to Amazon. Amazon falls flat after COVID boom. Amazon's third quarter earnings, were weaker than analysts expected, and its fourth quarter sales guidance underwhelmed heading into the holiday season. The e-commerce giant, which saw tremendous growth during the peak of the pandemic, is now increasingly facing headwinds from labor and supply chain crunches because they're a distributor. Yes, they have their own hardware, software. They have Kindles and that sort of thing, Alexa devices. But even though they have those things, they're simply a distributor. They're distributing books and tools and resources and product from many different sources. And so they don't control the supply chain other than the delivery from a warehouse to you, the last mile, if you will. And that's where they are increasingly well positioned. as well as higher costs for existing workforce. It's the first earnings report under new Amazon CEO Andy Jassy. On a brighter note, Amazon's cloud business, which Jassy led before assuming CEO duties, continues to grow alongside solid demand for digital ad business. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because the retail distribution business is not likely very profitable outside of their Prime memberships. That's one person's opinion. Third quarter earnings dropped to $3.2 billion compared to $6.3 billion during the same period last year. Well, yeah, I mean, replicating what happened last year, I hope doesn't happen again, to be honest. I think many of us would prefer not to be work from home, locked down, everybody closed. Amazon was the only option. They had a captive audience, and they made hay while they could, and good on them. Revenue jumped 15% to 110.8, but it missed analyst targets. That's interesting. So even though revenues were up 15%, they missed the analyst target for earnings, I guess. Interesting. Amazon forecasts fourth quarter sales, 130 billion to 140 billion. Analysts were expecting just over 142. Well, it's interesting. I wonder what it was last year, this time, probably even higher so than that, because they still had inventory, right? The supply chain hadn't been impacted yet. And so I think, it's easy to forecast these kind of things. Let's see. Thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte has a question here. So let me stop the screen share and we'll go and answer Charlotte's question. Applied for a manager role, and during the interview, the recruiter referenced a different position, higher level as associate director. It was outside my comfort zone. Good. Here's what they're doing. They're validating that you have the expertise to do the job. So you don't talk them out of hiring you. Okay. So let's see what she did. She said, I decided to take a leap of faith and apply, but knowing that I do not have the soft social skills yet they are looking for. Okay. Yeah, apply for both. Why not? I mean, hey, if you don't get the one, maybe you get the other. There's no downside to that. And if you get the one and show you're good at it, then, maybe you get promoted to the other. So yeah, don't talk the hiring team out of hiring you. Let's allow them to see you as something more than you believe in yourself. So there's no reason to talk. You may be talking yourself out of it, but that's okay. Do that after you get the offer. Don't talk them out of it. Let's just say that. Why would I turn down somebody offering me a job at more money, more responsibility? I mean, isn't that what most people want? They want the growth opportunity, and growth comes outside the comfort zone. That's just the truth of the matter. How do I interview? You work with a coach like me to prepare, because it might be outside your level of comfort, and therefore you don't show up to the interview absolutely prepared. So whether it's me or someone else you already have an agreement with, right? If you have a coach already, then go with that coach. If you don't, then certainly I'm available, accessible if you need support that way. We have a very well-defined interview preparation program. So let's see. Okay, so here's the question. Thank you, Charlotte. So how do I compensate for these skills when I try to explain that I don't? Is that you? Think of a time when you did have those skills. Now, you may not have been in a leadership capacity as an associate director or whatever the title is you're interviewing for, but you may have done that in a volunteer opportunity. You may have done that as a individual contributor with a peer, right? So it doesn't have to be a direct reporting structure kind of interaction. It could be something tangential to that demonstrates your confidence. Now, remember, it doesn't matter what you say, it matters how you say it. Words are only 7% of communication. That means 93% is not the words, it's your delivery of the words. If you're confident in your presentation, they will be confident in you. It's hard to express confidence when, it's not hard for them to feel confident when you're not. And that means it takes practice. It takes some repetitions. You need to build out a story that talks about your soft skills in a way that they can understand. Because often we look at it and say, I don't have that, rather than saying, how do I have that? How do I have that? How do I have that skill? Because I could look at a job description I did this week and it said, must have 3 years project management experience. Now, if I look at the job description and the role, duty, responsibilities, I can see, yes, I don't have 3 years of project management experience in what they're asking for, but I do have 3 years of project management experience as a salesperson because I come from sales and marketing. What do you think sales is? Sales is a project every single time. You have to find a customer. You have to, identify a need. That's requirements definition. Once you define the requirements, what product or service are going to help meet those requirements? Provide them a proposal, close the deal, deploy, get a technical resource involved, bring in hardware, software, and services. You're just working a project. You're just not a project manager in the literal sense of the term. You're a project manager because you were in sales. And so the story isn't using sales terminology. It's using project management terminology to articulate your capacity to manage that project. So that's how you do it, is you take a look at the requirement and you ask yourself, how do I have that skill? How have I displayed something similar? Because it might not be direct, it might be tangential, and it's not out of bounds to have that. And if that's the only thing you don't have, but you have all the other stuff, then, hey, they may overlook that. And that's something I can develop. That's something I can learn. I can learn those soft skills. And you have to be open to learning those skills as well. So it's not just you answering confidently, it's you being open to and willing to learn. And so therefore, not only do I need the soft skills story, I also need the learning story. When have you come into a situation where you didn't have confidence and gained it? Okay, so that's what you would look at, and you'd come up with a story. Hey, once upon a time in a land far, far away, I didn't have the expertise to do X, Y, and Z. It's still a task that was in front of me. So here's what I did about it. I learned it. And here's how I learned it. And once I learned it, I did it. And here's the results I got from that. So I now have a narrative that I can deliver in 1 to 2 minutes to do that. So you don't have to compensate for the skill. You have to have confidence that you can do the job, and then come up with a way that you do the job from a position of your strength, rather than, oh, I don't have that. Do you have project management experience? Here's what I do have. So I don't ever say, no, I don't have project management experience. I say, here's what I do have. I have a lot of experience interacting with, collaborating with teams where I had no accountability, right? No direct line of accountability. And it was my job to manage the rollout of certain solutions, right? As a salesperson. So as a salesperson, a business development rep, here's how I managed a project. Can I give you an example? Yes, give me an example. Pretty please, right? So then you go into an example where you used the terminology of project management, in this case for me, with that particular situation. Let's see. Here's another following question from Charlotte. Thank you so much. May I ask how to articulate is engaged in industry forums, speaking, writing articles, participating in society committees? These are the skills as a requirement. Yes, that's easy. You're on a forum right now. Are you not writing right now? Are you not in a society right now? Are you participating right now? And the answer is yes. If you're in social media, you're doing all those things, right? Are you, how would you say, a community organizer for a political action committee? No, that's a very specific set of skills and experiences, but that means you would have transferable skills and experiences that you could leverage. And so even though you're engaged in industry forums, say how you're engaged in different forums. That could be social media. That could be, you could start interacting in LinkedIn groups. That's a forum, right? Speaking and writing articles. So if they want you to be already an established, credible thought leader in a specific area, then, I mean, here's the thing. They probably wouldn't be paying, if that person was already established, they'd be paying a lot more money, but that's just that's my impression. So I don't know the specific situation with you, Charlotte. So let's see what she says here. I told them that I am familiar with X and I can apply those skills and I'm willing to learn. Yeah. So it's one thing to say, it's another thing to show. So do both. I can do this and I'm willing to learn. Here's a great example where I did the exact same thing with my prior employer who felt exactly the same way, that I had the skills and capabilities, but I needed to be developed. And here's the steps I took, and here's how I got there. And I did that in this amount of time, which is hopefully a short amount of time. And here's the results that they experienced. Okay. Yes, transferable. Well, and some of it may be translatable. So not only transferable, but translatable, meaning I have to take the words I used to use and interpret those for the audience I'm trying to impress with my expertise. And so that's just a natural process of interpretation. It takes some effort, some mental and emotional horsepower for sure, but it's worth it. I think it's worth it. And I think you'll do great. Good. So let me see. Is there another message in here? Good. You're welcome. Excellent. All right. So I don't see any other contributions here. And I've read through some of the news that was appropriate. And hopefully you gained something valuable here today. I would like to ask you a favor. Could you share this out with your networks, either through private message or public post, whatever you're most comfortable with? Put a like on this if you're on a certain platform, a thumbs up, whatever your platform is you're on. I would just like to see some affirmation that you got at least a little shred of value out of today's presentation. I do my best to share some thoughts and ideas, especially when you don't match the job requirements. All right, folks, have a great weekend. Happy Halloween for those who celebrate. And we'll see you next Friday for Career Happy Hour. Every Friday, 3 o'clock Pacific time. I will be here as long as I'm in town and available. And we'll see you next Friday. Take care, everybody. Bye.